Hi everyone, welcome back to our class. Again, this is Teacher Kina, and today we're going to learn all about fractions. And of course, in this lesson, we will learn how to identify the different types of fractions. We will also learn how to compare fractions and order fractions. Okay, so before we proceed, let's discuss our objectives. In this lesson, we'll be able to know the parts of fractions. Of course, the fractions has its parts, and we will also identify and differentiate the different kinds of fractions. Okay, there are a lot of there are different kinds of fractions, and today in this lesson, we will learn and try to differentiate the different kinds of fractions. And we will also learn how to compare and identify greater or lesser fractions. Even without looking at figures, even if there's no illustrations, we will be able to identify which fraction is greater and which fraction is lesser. Okay. And we will also learn how to order fractions in ascending and descending order. All right. So the keywords that we're going to use in these lessons are whole. Whole means all of something, or complete. Okay, it's the whole thing. I want to eat a whole apple. Okay, not half. Okay, like this paper. You see, it's a whole sheet of paper. And we'll also use the word part, which means piece of something. Okay, look at these pieces over here on the right side. These sheets of paper, these pieces of paper is a part of a whole. Okay, so this part of a whole is called, a piece of something is called parts. Okay, and we'll also use the word numerator. This is the number above the line in a fraction. Okay, this number here, you see below, is a fraction. And if you can see, there are two numbers in a fraction. The number above is called the numerator. Okay, and the number below is called the denominator. In this fraction, 3/5, 3 is the numerator and the 5th is the denominator. All right, and then we will also use the word lesser. Lesser means smaller. Okay, since our topic is about fractions, so when we talk about lesser here, that means smaller fraction, and greater means bigger fraction. Okay, and then we will also use the word order, which means arrangement or a sequence. So when we say arrange this, put this in order, that means you arrange either in ascending or in descending order. Ascending means from the least to the greatest, or from the smallest to the biggest, and descending means from the greatest to the least, or from the biggest to the smallest. Okay, so these are the keywords that we're gonna use in this lesson. Okay, first here, we will learn the types of fractions. Okay, actually there are more types of fractions, but here we will discuss first the three types of fractions. The proper fraction, okay, proper fraction is a fraction where the numerator, or the number on top of a fraction, is smaller than the denominator. We call this proper because this is the common way of writing fraction. The numerator should be smaller. Okay, that's the common, so that's the proper. Okay, if you can see, 1 and 5 is smaller than 3 and 8. Okay, 3 and 8 is the denominator. Okay, next is improper fraction. Improper fraction is the total opposite of the proper fraction. Okay, improper fraction is a fraction where the numerator is bigger or larger than the denominator. Okay, just look at the sample here on the right side. The numerators 7 and 4 is bigger than the denominators 3, right? Okay. So mixed numbers over here it's called mixed because it is um, uh, a combination of a whole number and a fraction. A whole number means the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and more. And the fraction is, it has a numerator and denominator. So if you look at the right side, okay, on this side is a sample of a mixed number. You see the whole number here is 3 and the fraction is 5/7. Okay, so that is a mixed number. Okay, on the next page, we will learn more examples. We will discuss more of these types of fractions. Okay, actually, this is already a review to you since we've been discussing this since your grade 1, I know. Okay, but anyway, we have to review this all again and again so you will not forget. Okay, first here is the proper fraction. Okay, proper fraction again is where the numerator is smaller than the denominator. Okay, look here. 3 is smaller than the denominator 5. Okay, more examples over here is 1/2. 1 is smaller than 2. 1/4. 1 is smaller than 4. And 3/4. 3 is smaller than 4. 2/3. 2 is smaller than 3. 3/10. 3 is smaller than 10. And 7/10. 7 is smaller than 10. Okay, so these are the examples, and there are a lot more fractions that we can make where numerator is smaller than the denominator, and that is a proper fraction. Okay, now let's have improper fraction. Okay, so improper fraction, it is where the numerator is bigger than the denominator. So in this case, 5 is bigger than 2. And actually, it's not only when numerator is greater than the denominator. When fractions have the same numerator and denominator, that is also an improper fraction, like this, 2/2. Okay, 2, the numerator is 2 and the denominator is 2. So that is also called an improper fraction. Same here, 4/4, okay, or 4/4. That is also an improper fraction. Okay, and then 7/4. 7 is bigger than 4. It's improper fraction. Also 5/3 and 8/5. Okay, the numerators are greater than the denominator. Okay, so here is another example of a mixed fraction. Mixed fraction or a mixed number. Okay, again, it's called mixed because there is a whole number and a fraction. Okay, the whole number here is 2 and the fraction here is 1/7. Again, we will know if the number is fraction if there is a numerator and there is a denominator. So here, number 2 doesn't have a numerator and doesn't have a denominator, so it's a whole number. Okay. So it's a mixed number. Easy, yeah? So here, we're going to have a little game. I'm going to show you fractions, and then you will tell me if it's a proper fraction, an improper fraction, or a mixed number. Okay, mixed number or mixed fraction. Okay, so it's here. Let me change my, okay. So choices will be on the right side of the screen, proper fraction, improper fraction, or mixed fraction. Are you ready? In 3? Okay, I'll give you 2 seconds to answer in every fraction. Okay, and then I will say the answer so you can see if you're correct or not. Okay, let's try to do it as fast as you can. Ready? In 3, 2, 1. 4/8 is a proper fraction. 9/12. Proper fraction again. You see, smaller numerator is a proper fraction. Improper fraction. Good job. How about this? Proper fraction. And a mixed fraction. Improper fraction. proper fraction. A mixed fraction. Good job! All right, it's easy, yeah? Just always remember, if the numerator is smaller than the denominator, then that is a proper fraction. The opposite way around, numerator is greater, it's an improper fraction. And if there's a mixture or combination of a whole number or whole number and a fraction, then that's a mixed number. Okay, now we'll learn more of a type of fraction. Okay, we call this similar or like fractions. Okay, we cannot, we will say similar or like fractions with a group of fractions, either 2, 3, or more. We cannot identify similar or like fractions or dissimilar or unlike fractions with only one fraction. Okay, so in here I have 4. Okay, similar fractions are the fractions where the denominators are all the same. Again, the denominator is the number below, or the number below the line. Okay, so that is similar fractions. Okay, take a look at the samples over here. 1/8, 3/8, 2/8, and 5/8. Okay, have you noticed all the denominators are 8? So when all the denominators are the same, we call them similar or like fractions. Okay, don't forget that, similar, when the denominators are all equal. Okay, how about dissimilar or unlike fractions? Okay, this is the opposite of similar. Okay, these denominators, their denominators are not the same. Okay, take a look at the samples we have here. 1/5, 3/7, 2/3, and 5/9. Okay, have you noticed their denominators? 5, 7, 3, and 9. They are not the same. So we call them dissimilar or unlike fractions. We can use dissimilar, or we can also use unlike. Okay. So let's try. Are you ready to have a game? Okay, you're going to tell me if it's a similar or dissimilar fraction, like or unlike. Okay, whatever you like, whatever you prefer to use, similar or like. Okay, in this, you see all of the denominators are 8, so this is called a similar fractions. All right. So are you ready? In 3, 2, 1. Yes. Dissimilar or unlike fractions. Very good. How about this? Dissimilar or unlike fractions. You see the denominators are not the same. Similar. Okay, all of the denominators are 10. And okay, how about this? The numerators are equal, but the same, but the denominators are not. So are they similar or dissimilar? They are dissimilar. Why? Because we will identify dissimilar and similar fractions on their denominators. Okay, numerators is not included. Okay, it doesn't matter if the numerators are all the same or not, as long as the denominators are not the same, then that's a dissimilar fraction. Okay. Now let's proceed. Imagine you take 1/6 of a birthday cake, and your sister takes 3/6. Who has more cake? Okay, you look at the illustration below. Your part is 1/6, so that means you got one part out of 6, and your sister got 3 parts out of 6. So who got more cake? Okay, by just looking at the illustration, you can see that your sister got more. Okay, but if we don't have illustrations, we don't have pictures, you cannot see anything, only numbers, only fractions. Are you able to identify which fraction is greater or smaller? Okay, that's what we're going to learn today. Of course, that is just an introduction. So here we will learn how to compare and order fractions. Okay, first, for similar fractions, these are the fractions with the same denominators. That's what I told you a while ago. Okay, like this one. Denominators are the same. We will identify which one is smaller or which one is greater based on their numerator. Okay, look at their denominator. They are equal, right? So we will choose between the numerator. If the numerator is smaller, then that means that is a lesser fraction. If the numerator is bigger, then that means that is a greater fraction. Okay, look at this illustration over here. This wheel is divided into 12, and this left side got 8 parts, and the right side got 9. So what do you think? Which do you think is greater? Of course, it's 9/12. But even without looking at the illustrations over here, even without this, we can identify which fraction is greater or smaller by just looking at their numerator. Okay, the greater numerator is the greater fraction, right? Okay, so here are more samples of similar fractions. Look at their denominators, it's all 8. Okay, but the numerators, look at their numerators, 3, 5, and 7. Okay, even if you don't look at these illustrations, you will identify which fraction is smallest by just looking at the numerator. The smallest numerator is the smallest fraction. Okay, if it's a similar fraction. Okay, and the greatest numerator is the greatest fraction. Okay, this is only for similar fractions. Okay, how about what's happening? Okay, here. Let's try to arrange from the least to the greatest. As I've said, the smaller the numerator, the smaller the fraction. Okay, so which one has the smallest numerator? Yes, it's the 1/8. So that means this 1/8 is the smallest or the least fraction, okay, among this. Okay, the next one is 2/8. So 2/8 will be the second, and 3/8. Next is 4/8 and 5/8. All right, so now we have ordered these similar fractions from the least to the greatest, or we call it ascending order. Okay, we started from the smallest or the least fraction, which is 1/8, and then we ended up to the greatest fraction, or the fraction with the biggest value. It's 5/8. So this is how we compare and order fractions that are similar. Okay, we base on their numerators. The smaller the fraction, the smaller the numerator, the smaller the fraction. Okay, let's proceed. Number 2, dissimilar fractions. These are the fractions whose denominators are not the same. Okay, we will try these dissimilar fractions with the numerators are all the same. Okay, dissimilar because their denominators are not the same. Okay, as I've said, never mind the numerator. Even if the numerators are all equal or not, as long as the denominators are not the same, then that is a dissimilar fraction. Okay, so in here, when all the numerators are the same, we can identify which fraction is smallest by just looking at their denominators. Okay, but this time it's the opposite of the similar fractions. The bigger the denominator, the smaller the fraction. So which one has the greatest denominator here? It's 8, right? So that means 8 is the smallest fraction here. Okay? If the numerators are all the same, the biggest denominator is the smallest fraction. Okay, what is the smallest denominator? Okay, the smallest denominator is 4. So that means 3/4 is the greatest fraction, okay, in this group. Okay, let's try here. 1/6, 1/5, 1/4, and 1/3. Okay, all the numerators are 1 and the denominators are not the same. So it's called a dissimilar fraction. Okay, if you look at the figures, you can easily identify which one is smallest and which one is greatest. But even if you don't look at this, even if there's no illustrations or diagrams or whatever, by just looking at the denominators, you will identify which fraction is smallest. Okay, in here, 6 is the greatest number. So, 6 is the greatest denominator. So that means 1/6 is the smallest fraction. And since 3 is the biggest denominator, then that means 1/3 is the greatest fraction, okay, in this group. Easy, right? Smallest part is 1/6 and the biggest part is 1/3. Okay, so let's proceed with this one. Let's try to arrange from the least to the greatest. Okay, which one do you think is the least fraction here? As I've said, it's the opposite around of the similar fractions where the denominators are all the same. So here, if the numerators are all the same, look at the greatest denominator. Which one? It's 9, right? So that means 2/9 is the least fraction. Okay. What is next to 9? Look at the denominators. It is 8. So it's 2/8. Okay, what's next to 8? Of course, 7. So it is 2/7. Next to 7 is 2/6 and 2/5. So in this group of fractions, the least fraction is 2/9 and the greatest fraction is 2/5. Okay, easy, right? Okay, so here we were able to identify which fractions is smaller, bigger, and we were able to order fractions from the least to the greatest. When you order in descending order, then you do it in the opposite way around. You start from the greatest fraction down to the lowest or the least fraction. Okay, now we will also learn how to compare and order fractions with both the numerators and denominators not the same. Okay, like this one. Okay, look at the numerators. They're all not the same. And look at the denominators. They're all not the same. So that means this is a dissimilar fraction. But it will be a little bit tricky in identifying which one is smaller and which one is greater, because there are no similar numerators and the denominators are also not the same. Okay, so since we don't have enough time now, so we will be discussing this in our next class, in our next lesson. So hope to see you on our next video, so you'll be able to know about this. You will be able to identify lesser and greater fractions with no similar numerators and no similar denominators. Right? See you next time. This is all for now. Bye.
There were 5 pieces in one whole pie. The denominator of the whole pie was 5. The numerator of my part was 3, as 3/5 of the pie was for me. Mama made the apple pie out of Granny Smith. She asked me if I liked it. I said, I plead the 5th. The numerator's the one, the denominator's the whole, and fractions not as they roll. 3 birds were on a telephone pole. The denominator 3 was the group as a whole. The numerator 2 out of the thirds described the 2 birds that were blue birds. The numerator 2 described how many were blue, and something fell on my head. It was bird food. The numerator's a one, the denominator's the whole, and fractions not as they roll. The 4 shots on the goal. 3 went in, but 1 hit the pole. The denominator was all 4 shots. The numerator was the 3 goals at top. And other teams record and taking a toll. Got 3 points on the shot and 1 Olympic goal. The numerator's the